we will begin with a 3-minute opening statement. Each question, a 2-minute limit. This is our timer, Mrs. Judy Anderson. She's got the shredded stopwatch and the signs, and even more importantly, if you go over, she's got a whistle that they can hear. The 2-minute time limit on questions, and then you will all be given 3 minutes each for a closing statement. So, let's draw for, I'll just let whoever is brave enough to step up. Mr. Paracombe draws number 2. Dr. Rogers, number 3. Number 1. Brown, number 4. Right, then you just grab your seats. Try to move this along as quickly as possible. And Mr. Francis is number 1. So, if you will come forward and begin.
My name is John Francis, and I'm running to be your voice in Austin as state representative. You know, there's something that's very important for you to understand about me. I'm a man of faith, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican. And it's in that exact order. It's very important that you understand that about me. You know, I didn't get into this race until our current representative, Mike Lang, good man, he's a conservative, but he made the decision to not to run for re-election. And it was only after that decision was made that I decided to get into the race. And the reason I did that, the reason I decided to run and give it consideration is because I'm so very proud of this district. It is one of the most conservative districts in the entire state, and it's the reason, that is one reason that my wife 27 years, and I have lived in this district for over 20 years now. It's where we've raised our 4 children. We worship here, we've educated our children here, and we love this district. And by the way, I didn't have to move into the district in order to run for this position. I didn't have to change parties in order to run for this position. My wife and I have been here for over 20 years because we love Cisco, and we love this district. So, you know, I get asked quite often, what are your legislative priorities if you were to be elected? And to be perfectly honest, I think that's a little strange of a question. The reason I say that is that the Republican delegates have already explained to everyone on this stage. They went at length and told us what their priorities are. It's called the Republican Party of Texas platform. There are 339 planks in that platform, and those are the priorities. And so I stand before you today, and I'm telling you that my priorities are your priorities. So I just want to make that very clear that we're going to represent you. You're here to choose one of us to represent you. And I want you to have a clear understanding of exactly what it is that you're getting when you choose each one of us. You know, one of the things that I'm so proud of our president for is that he has unmasked the leftist media, and he's also unmasked the swamp in Washington, D.C. And you know, the truth of it is that there is a swamp that is in Austin as well. And they are just as powerful as the ones that are in D.C. And I want you to know that the swamp, the lobbyists, have made their choice in this race. And it ain't me. I have made a pledge to not accept a single penny from any PAC, any lobbyist, any special interest. I have over 500 individual donors to my campaign that have trusted me with protecting their liberty in Austin. And so my name is John Francis, and I would appreciate the ability to earn your trust and your support. Thank you.
Alrighty. Can y'all hear me? I'm very soft-spoken. My name is Christopher Perricone. You can find out more information about me at christopherfortexas.com. That's christopherfortexas.com. Two things that I've been thinking about, and God really showed this to me probably a couple weeks ago. Y'all have a big decision to make, not just amongst the 4 candidates that are standing before you today, but you listen to 2 other ones prior to us coming up there. And the first thing you have to figure out is, are these people going to be people that resonate with you? Are they going to be people that are going to live out what you believe? Are they going to vote in accordance with your beliefs, because we are representative? And so you do that by listening, and you research, and you find information on them. But the real way to tell is to go and see what they've actually done. And as I stand up here amongst 3 others, I can say that you can go back and look at a history where I have proven conservative values. Not just conservative values, but everything that the Republican platform has put down, I can point to evidences of things that I have done. The Word of God says that we are to look into and inspect the fruit that is on the tree. And I propose to y'all that as y'all look at the 4 trees that are here, there's one that stands before you which has fruit. And you can look at that fruit and decide if it is good and effective, if it resonates with you. The number 2 thing I want you to think about while y'all are here and listening to all of us is, and I quote Albert Einstein on this, he says, the greatest invention ever made in mankind was compound interest. In other words, you put money in a bank and it gains interest, and then that interest, you gain interest on that interest, and so forth and so on. I propose to you that just as Albert Einstein says that was the greatest invention of humankind, he also said it's the most powerful tool known to man. I propose to you that your votes have the ability to do and have compound interest. So as you look at us, you need to be looking for men or women that will go down to Austin or go to DC, that will be influential, that will take the one vote that you have given to them, and they will go and bring someone that's either on the Republican side that's a rhino, or they'll bring a Democrat over because they're influential people. If we start thinking about our votes differently and start thinking about how can we find influential people, it will change the way you look at each of us. And I highly recommend, after we get done answering your questions, because we are all sitting for the Republican ticket, have a chance to go speak with each one of us. See if they are influential. See, just visit with each one of us. My name is Christopher Perricone. I have a background that checks off all the boxes that most people would want, from an education all the way up to a master's degree. I served in Iraq with 2 combat tours. I did special ops, and I'm the current mayor of Mineral Wells. If you want to know more information about me, christopherfortexas.com. Look forward to having you. Thank you. God bless.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Rogers, and I want to be your next state representative. I've been traveling all over this district for the last 6 months. I've been in every county many times. I've been in almost every community. There's a few of the smaller ones I haven't quite gotten to, but I've visited city and county officials, school officials, business leaders, ordinary citizens, people all over the district to find out what the needs are of this district. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and I know many of you in the room in this, and so I didn't want to be repetitive. I'm just going to give you a very brief intro. The 2 things that are most important to me are my faith and my family. I've been a Methodist, traditional Methodist, for over 50 years, and I'm immersed in God's grace. My family, I have 4 living children, 5 grandchildren. My wife, Mandy's also a veterinarian. I didn't mention to you that I'm a veterinarian and a ranger, but my wife, Mandy's also a veterinarian. My oldest daughter, Meg, is an MD. My number 2 daughter, Jenny, is an attorney. My son, Ben, is a senior at Texas A&M. And my daughter, Leah, wants to be at Texas A&M as well. Hopefully she'll make it. I didn't have any gray hair until Leah was born. I contributed every bit of that to her. I'm staunchly pro-life, strong on the Second Amendment. I believe that there should be no illegal immigration. The three pillars of my platform and things that we need to think about every day in this district are public education, healthcare, and economic development. These affect each and every one of you every day, and we'll work hard in all those areas. In summary, there's no one up here, and those of you, also have some other family, my sister and my niece Courtney, who I'm glad to have here, and someone who's almost family, Jason, who's my ranch manager, and one of the reasons I'm able to do this is because he's taking care of things at home. But I want you to know that I will do everything possible to work for you, and there's no one will work harder for you each and every day than I will. Thank you.
Hello? It's quiet. Is it? That's what I was like.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. This is
That's what I was like, this was
all
really
system,
quiet. The one
yeah.
the other night was like really loud. What I learned the other night is I need to not ramble because a minute was short. We get 2 here, so we'll see how we do. I'm Kelly Sorrell. I'm the only female on the panel, obviously. I am an attorney in Granbury. I have been licensed since 2006. I am married to Jeremy Sorrell. We have been married for over 17 years. We have 4 children, a set of twins that are 16, a 14 and a 13-year-old. Our house is tons of fun. And prior to moving up here, I lived on the border here in Texas. I was a prosecutor. Focused primarily when you're on the border, it's pretty much all the issues that kind of come north. I have advocated my entire career. I have no issue ever going after the state when they're wrong. When I was a prosecutor, I was very proud of the fact that I always sought justice, which is, not something every prosecutor can say. I didn't care if I was dumping it, as long as it was for the right reason. I was completely and totally fine with that. I am a member of the church, the Bridge Church in Granbury, and I really look forward to advocating, or hoping to get elected and advocating for you in the future. Over to you.
I'm so glad that you can count better than I can. This will be our first question, and the order in which it will be answered will be Mr. Paracombe, Dr. Rogers, Ms. Sorrell, and Mr. Francis. So everybody's got to memorize that. First question is, where do you stand on education? What is your plan to improve, and how will you pay for it without increasing property taxes?
Thank you. The question is basically where do I stand on education? I'm a homeschooler. I started homeschooling in 5th grade and have been all the way through the private schools, the public schools, and then all the way through higher education with a master's degree in Christian education. The first thing that I would want to see happen is we've got to get the federal government out of our public education. Public education, we need that. I love the fact that I had the choice. My father was able to homeschool me, and I think that choice needs to be extended to all parents. But we absolutely need the public school systems, and I think the state should be bearing the brunt of the payments on that. But first and foremost, I would get rid of the federal government. Any of the money that the ISDs are taking from the federal government, that invites them and opens the door for the federal government to come in and say, hey, we're going to start running things that are contrary to our beliefs, whether it's, you know, the boys thinking they can go in girls' bathrooms and what other nonsense that is coming in from the federal side. But, so we stopped that, so we don't have to listen to them. The state's right should be trumping it. We need to have the, as far as the pay goes, as far as the funding of it, I hear a lot in the public schools that a lot of the money that comes in gets stuck in the administration. It needs to get down to the children. As a homeschooler, I can tell you that the amount of cost to educate a child is far, far less than what we are seeing on the public side. 1 minute, thank you. As I think about how this is to be attacked on property taxes, I mean, there's plans out there that people have never advocated for that can actually eliminate all of our property taxes. What we saw in the last session with the changes in the way we did property taxes for the ISD, you see the ISD has got their taxes lowered. We saw some pay raises go to teachers, much needed. But what happens in effect for all of us taxpayers here as the mayor of the city, and I saw this on our side, so the ISD lowers theirs a few pennies, and the other taxing entities are still part of those property taxes. They simply raise theirs up, and so you and I don't see a net effect. And in fact, it's worse than that because property taxes will inevitably rise because our property values have risen. I think we need to revamp the entire way that we are looking at our funding of our public school systems. A big help that's going to also come once the congressional guys get the wall built, that's on the federal side. When we deal with the illegal immigration, that's going to be a huge help for the way we're doing our education, the way our budgets go and our taxes. I would love to look at all solutions that are being proposed and come at it with a very creative mind and just get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Tough question. How do we support and improve public education? I've had experience as a school board member. It's been a number of years ago, but I was a school board member in Grayford. I've also been an educator. I was a professor in a university for a number of years. I didn't teach in a high school, but I did have that experience. We've got to improve the structure in which we fund public schools. By 2023, 2/3 of all the money that goes to public schools will come from local property taxes when you combine local property taxes and recapture. That's just not sustainable. We have to do something different about that. We must have more coming from the state and less from local property taxes. I favor school choice, but public education is what we have to support, particularly in these rural communities. I oppose vouchers because they don't really fit well in the rural districts. I mean, we need to do everything we can to support public education. A lot of our communities depend on the schools. We won't have some schools without good public education. Everything about improving education is not throwing money at it. There are things we can do to be more efficient. One thing I'd like to see is elimination of the STAR test. The STAR test is causing a lot of angst in children as young as 3rd grade, and we shouldn't be putting that on kids. And then they get categorized in a certain area, and that stays with them their entire life through school. And it's just too early to do that. I haven't talked to an educator yet that likes the STAR test. We're teaching to the test. It's encouraging mediocrity. It needs to go. If we can't eliminate it, we need to at least reduce it. And the bare minimum, we should never have the STAR test exceed federal requirements. We should never have the state requirements exceed that. So there are many other things that we can do, but that's one thing, one example of how we can improve the efficiency of public schools without throwing money at it. So there's a lot more we can talk about, but I'll yield to the next speaker.
Okay, so I'm also kind of borderline libertarian on that side of the spectrum in that I believe very strongly in individual rights. And with that being said, I also believe that when the public speaks or when people speak, the representative, your legislature, anyone in the government, they should be listening and actually changing the law to reflect the desires of the public. So with that being said, as far as public schools are concerned, I would offer a consumption or a sin tax. Part of my platform, which is actually part of the Republican platform now, is decriminalization of marijuana or cannabis. And with that, I know other states have had pretty good luck at fundraising as far as being able to, I would propose that it go towards the M&O tax to reduce that portion of our property taxes, which happens to be the largest. We also test here in Texas more than is required from the federal mandates, and I would really like to see some of those eliminated. I am pro parent choice on anything, but I will say a strong public school is very important because we have to have an educated public, and until there's transparency and until there's regulation on the charter system or some of the alternatives, then I have concerns with fraud or abuse of the system. My grandmother actually is a retired school teacher, and one of my wants would be that we find a way to give retired school teachers a cost of living increase, because it's my understanding when you retire, that's it, and that's kind of where it stays. I've talked to several people who are retired, and they would like to see that as well. Thank you.
So I am 100% in favor of public education. You know, the vast majority of our students are educated in public schools, and that's a very important component of educating our children. I will, however, say that, you know, I've got 4 children, all of whom have required different educational needs at different times in their life. My daughter, right now, my youngest daughter is 18. She's the senior in Cisco High School, and we have a great ISD in Cisco. And you know, I think the biggest problem that we have is not a revenue problem in our educational area. In fact, this is broader than education. But specifically, what I'm saying is that we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And I believe that we can improve our public education by making sure that we're eliminating. I agree that we should eliminate the STAR testing, but we should also make sure that you know, these ISDs in large communities are, you know, I've even heard of you know, water parks that they're funding. They have bond elections for water parks. They have indoor facilities for you know, the sporting events. And I don't think that's a core. I don't think we should be focused on that. I think that we should be more focused on getting the money to where it actually is needed, which is directly to the teachers and directly to the students in the classroom. And I think that's got to be a priority. And I think that if we make that a priority, our funding issues will be much reduced. And I will say this too. You know, I heard a statistic recently that said that the average teacher in our state, this is horrible. The average teacher in our state spends per year $400 for Kleenexes and crayons, and I just think it's ridiculous. So we talked about earlier about the retirement program for teachers, and I just found out, I think you probably saw the same thing I did, that in Austin they have a giant you know, organization. They're paying $325,000 a month for rent in order to have the TRS, the retirement system, housed in a beautiful, I don't know how many story building it is, but it's ridiculous. And again, it goes back to being a spending problem.
All right, ready for a second question. The order to answer will be Dr. Rogers, Mrs. Sorrell, Mr. Francis, and then Mr. Perricone. Got it? what will be the first campaign promise you will keep?
The first campaign promise I will keep will be to be accessible. And as I've traveled throughout the district, I've been to a lot of places that have not seen their state representative and they would like to. And I will make sure that I have regular visits with city and county officials. We'll do town halls. We'll be in touch any way we need to. I'll be representing you, the people of this district, whether it's a group of sheriffs, whether it's county commissioners, whether it's mayors, whatever, we need to have regular communication. And that's my promise to you, that when I get to Austin, I won't forget about you. I will take care of you. I'll take care of this district. So that would be my first campaign promise that I'll keep. Thank you.
I think we're probably all gonna be, on the accessibility, aspect of it. I will say that I think I'm the only one, well, I don't know, that is running around working nonstop during this campaign. Everybody else seems to be out pounding the pavement. But when I announced, and Wayne as my paralegal and also my campaign manager, we tried to start reducing my caseload, but then, you know, I always jump in for a fight. So anyway, with that being said, as I've kind of like started cutting back so that I could spend like the solid month of February out and about, that would be absolutely my promise. I have no issue opening anytime, running to meet with people. I've met with people all over the district. I don't necessarily focus on the government folk. I know that's like, you know, faux pas. Everybody runs to the sheriffs and elected officials and county judges and everything like that. I've actually tried to reach out and find the people that feel like they've been lost by the system. And those are kind of my favorite folks, because they're the ones that can tell me what we need to fix and what we need to change. And so I have, and will continue to reach out, make contact, hopefully get to know more people around the district, and hopefully I'm elected.
If you win, what will be the first campaign promise you will keep? I don't make promises that I don't keep. That question doesn't compute. I will keep all of my campaign promises. I believe that we should expect elected officials to do exactly what they say they're going to do and actually mean it. I wrote personally all of my campaign literature, and I prioritized it, I put it down. In fact, I put my phone number on every single piece of literature that I have, because it's for two reasons. So the first is that I want you to know that you can call me and ask any question that you want. But the second, and the most important reason I put my campaign literature, or I put my phone number, it's my cell number, by the way, and it's the reason that I put it on there is because I am fully expecting, I'm expecting that you will hold me accountable when I go to Austin. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I'm so frustrated, and that's part of the reason that I decided to make this run to become a representative, is because I'm frustrated that it's so often the politicians will go to Austin, they'll make all these promises during the campaign, they go door to door, they knock on your door, they say, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and then the reality is they get to Austin, and they don't do that, they don't do this, and they don't do the other. And so I'm just telling you that what I've written and what I'm presenting to you is me, right? So what you see is what you get. The promises that I'm making in this campaign are exactly who I am, and I'm pleading with you. Not only hold me accountable, hold all of your elected officials accountable. I promise, when I make a promise, I keep the promise. That's my answer.
First thing that I would do, first promise I would keep, is I would be that atypical politician like Donald Trump. He is a man that's gone to DC and is fighting for our rights, standing up for us, and doing exactly what he said he was going to do, not listening to the interests that are down there. What that looks like in fighting for you. Number one, I believe the most detrimental thing against our own liberties that are being infringed upon, even at the city level, is the taxpayer-funded lobbies. And I'll even name those, two of them, TML and TAC. The citizens and the common citizens of Mineral Wells don't realize what we see as elected official, as mayor of this town. What I'm seeing from TML would make your stomach turn. There's a reason why I stand up inviting and filing a lawsuit against this city. There's absolute reasons. There's constitutional violations, and if they were willing to do that to a mayor, and you are foolhardy enough to think that they would not do those same atrocities against you, I'm here to say y'all need someone to go down there and stand up and fight. There was a saying someone said, well, it makes a lot of sense, like you'd be like the Rocky Balboa of politics. And maybe just a real quiet, soft-spoken person, but when I stand up and I stand strong, because the Word of God, Proverbs 27:1 says that the righteous shall be bold as lions. The Word of God also says, everybody's talked about faith in here, but in James 2:24 it says that a man is justified by his works, not by faith alone. I believe also in James where it says that we are to live by faith, and faith without works, if we talk about what we're going to do, it's simply giving out faith, because the book of Romans says faith comes from hearing, and hearing according to the Word of God only. When people talk, and they say about things they're going to do, that's only half the story, and it makes you completely irrelevant if you don't have the action to back it up. Y'all talk about things I want to do. I've already done it as mayor and trying to accomplish the same things, whether it's standing up for the rights of the unborn under the 14th Amendment, abortion needs to be completely abolished, whether it's proposing and not just holding the line when my constituents, or not my constituents, but the council members are voting to raise taxes, I'm proposing to lower them and preparing plans that can help eliminate them. When it's about term limits, I want to talk about term limits and lower term limits even at council level. Council doesn't want to talk about it. There are things, when y'all send a man or a woman down to Austin and they can articulate the arguments to people that are reasonable and will listen, you will see massive changes. Think of it this way. Y'all have in Austin right now, the Republicans hold the House, the Senate, and the gubernatorial, and yet we don't have constitutional carry. We don't have abortion that's been abolished. We don't have the reforms that have been put in place for property taxes. And how many hundreds of other Republicans stood up here just like me and said, I will do this or that? I can tell you, a vote for me, you can look at a track record that has not only taken the stand for right to life, on property, on term limits. You can look at a myriad of different things. And I have suffered the persecution from being amongst people that are too liberal. And this is the 29th most conservative town in the state of Texas, and yet we can't even have a discussion about the rights of the unborn. Y'all send me down to Austin, I will show you how effective one person that is fighting and standing up on principles that he believes and has been proven under pressure can be for your vote. Thank you.
For our next question, the order will be Mrs. Sorrell, Mr. Francis, Mr. Paracom, and Dr. Rogers. What are the three most important issues facing our district? What are the three most important issues facing our district?
So I know for Hood County, because that's primarily where I'm at, I know that for us, the main primary concern has been property taxes. Ours have skyrocketed over the last couple of years, and I know that that is something that is very important, and I'm assuming to everyone in the district, is making sure that we keep the agricultural exemptions and lower the property taxes, the M&O, making sure that you don't have the 100% requirement as far as market value. Education is always important. Making sure that our educators have everything that they need available. And I know that surprisingly what I have found while speaking with people from all over everywhere is primarily corruption. And I think that's one of the issues that can be addressed just by kind of making it accessible, or an avenue accessible to kind of deal with people's concerns, especially at the local level. I am actually don't want to local control, and I would not like to see everything go to Austin, just because I feel like we have an ability to access our leaders when they're here and voice our opinion. If we all had to figure out how to get to Austin, I don't, know that many of us, and actually I know most of us aren't able to on a regular basis, just because we have wives and kids and jobs and all of those things. So, yeah, I guess those are, my understanding of the three most important issues facing our district.
I believe that we have a problem in Texas and in this district that we need to solve, and we need to solve it immediately, and that is we need to build the wall, because we need to eliminate taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigration. It raises the taxes, and I believe that the number two issue is taxes. In other words, how often do we hear the politicians go to Austin, they say, this is a priority of ours, we're going to lower property taxes. And the reality is they don't do any such thing. They want to do a tax swap. Well, I'm here to tell you that a tax swap is not the same thing as a tax, as lowering the taxes. I'm in favor of actually lowering the taxes. And I believe that we should do that by means of a consumption tax. And the third issue for me that I believe is also critical for the voters in this district, and by the way, I'm saying these things, I'm just simply repeating, I've literally knocked on over 1,000 doors in the last month since I've been campaigning. And I hear these things over and over again. I had a 95-year-old woman come to the door, and it took her a while to get to the door. She finally made it to the door, and she creaked the door open, and she was just fiery hot, fiery mad over the situation that's going on with the impeachment. But she was telling me that she's sick and tired of the property taxes that are so high. And I just can't tell you how many people have said the exact same thing. We need to build a wall, we need to lower property taxes, and then pro-life is the third issue. It's a critical issue for our state. And I will just say this, that is my top priority. We need to establish a culture of life in this state. And it's something that we need to do. We need to abolish abortion. It's an issue that affects every single other area of our life, the protection of our unborn children. And anyway, those are the issues that I'm hearing at the door, and so that would be my answer. Thank you.
Statistically speaking, on the phone calls on polls, there are three top issues: build the wall, abortion, and constitutional carry. Those are the top three on the phone. Talking to real people, door to door, different issues arise. First of all, on the state side, the wall is always big, but as a state legislator, that's not our role, that's the federal government. State legislators, we're to deal with the enticements. So that is what we will do. If you send one of us to Austin, we'll deal with these enticements. So my priority of what I listen to people, the number one thing I'm here to, and Kelly actually hit on it, is corruption. People are afraid that the people they're sending down to Austin or DC are not doing what they said they're gonna do. And there's a quote, it says, the greatest single cause of atheism in the world today is people that acknowledge Jesus with their lips, and they walk out the door and deny him by their lifestyle. In other words, people say they're Christian, they walk out of that church, and they do nothing that looks like a Christian. In the same vein with Republicans, they say they're Republican, they attest to the platform, they go down to Austin, they go down to DC, and they don't do what they said. So the number one thing, people say, I want a man or a woman that will do what they say they're gonna do. And I say, fantastic, I meet that bill, let me show you what I've done. Not let me tell you about what I wanna do, let me show you what I've done. Talk about banning abortion, I wanna see it completely abolished. We have got to start thinking differently about the way we do our government. It is about from the lowest levels going up. Local magistrates, whether it's the elected officials at the mayor or the city officials and councils, we have the ability to legislate and to help to govern better, to help our state legislators. I believe that abortion can be completely eradicated. Instead of us going through the Supreme Courts, which statutory law should trump judicial law. We've got to stop giving up our liberties simply because a judge that's unelected is saying something, because he does not represent my values and he's not representative of me. But I can tell you who is. It's what's on our state laws right now, because it's illegal in the state of Texas to have abortion. We need men that will stand up and have a backbone. So abortion, constitutional carry should have already been done. And there's, I think, 15 other states that have already done it. Vermont was first. And I heard someone post online that we should stop referring to it as constitutional carry and call it permitless carry. I like that. It sounds, it's more true of what it is. If we don't have the rights to protect ourselves, the government, just as I've seen on the local level, they will overreach and they will abuse and be tyrannical. That is the reason why we have our Second Amendment, to keep the government from overreaching and abusing their power, and our guns are there to keep us safe and protective and to keep the government's hands off of our own liberties. So abortion, constitutional carry, fighting against corruption, those are the big three that I'm hearing. Building the wall has to be done on the federal level. We'll take care of the enticements. The enticements will deal, that's the biggest one on there. One of the biggest ones was property taxes. When are we going to start doing property taxes differently? When are we going to have people that are creative ideas? Because there's plenty of ideas that have already been promoted. Please send me down there and I will show you how these things can be done. Thank you. I'm Christopher.
Well, I want to focus on what we can do right now in this district. And I'm running for this office because I want to represent rural Texas in this district. And Harris County, where Houston is located, has more state representatives than we do west of I-35. And with redistricting, so there's only about 19 representatives west of I-35. With redistricting, it'll probably be about 17. So it's going to be imperative that we stand up for the needs of rural Texas, and that's going to be my top priority. It's important that we do three things, and that's, I've already mentioned those, and that's support public education, support rural health care, and support economic development. We have to have all three of those things working for vital rural communities. And if you look at a map of the United States, the reason Trump is elected is because of rural Texas. The reason the Republican Party is in control of the Senate and is as strong as it is because of rural Texas. We have to do everything we can to keep rural communities thriving. We've already talked a little bit about education, so I'll skip that. But in rural health care, Texas leads the nation in rural hospital closures. That's just unacceptable. In the last 6 months, I've spent lots of time visiting with hospital CEOs, with physicians, with people on hospital boards, trying to identify what we can do to improve our hospitals, because we have several communities that are in danger of losing their hospitals, and we have to do everything we can to stop that. There's some innovative things we can do with some telehealth, telepsych type activities that could be beneficial, and we could certainly talk a lot more about it. In terms of economic development, there's a shining star, and that's mineral wells. With what's going on with economic development here, I'm very proud. I've been spreading that word around the district, and what Randy Nix and the visionaries here have done to begin to revitalize this town is just amazing. Not every town in this district can be a destination city for tourism, but every town in this district has something unique that they can build on and grow on with economic development. So the three most important things: public education, rural health care, and economic development. Thank you.
For our next question, the order of speaking will be Mr. Francis, Mr. Perricone, Dr. Rogers, and Mrs. Sorrell. donations affect your decision-making in Austin? Specifically, large donations, 50,000 plus, PACs, and lobbyists.
Thank you. This is a very good question. You know, I've made a campaign promise that I will take zero money from special interests, from PACs, or from lobbyists. And I want to make the point again, I've already said this one time, but I'm going to say it again. One of the most important things that our president has done for us is to unmask the swamp in DC. And I'm here to tell you that there is a swamp that exists, there is a lobby, they're very powerful in Austin. And by the way, they have picked their candidate in this race, and it ain't me. And the reason that I say that is that it's so important to figure out who the people are that are donating money to a campaign. I have made the decision that I will not be shackled before I even get to Austin. I think that's what happens to many politicians. They take money from PACs, they take money from lobbyists, they take money from special interests, and before they ever arrive, they've already had their hands tied behind their back. They owe people. I owe absolutely no one. I've had literally over 500 individual donors to my campaign. Individuals. Now it's true, I have some individuals that are very wealthy, and I'm super grateful to be able to align with them. They happen to be my in-laws, and we are very, you might call us ultra-conservative. And I'm so very grateful to the family. For example, you know, in our world we have so many billionaires and millionaires that are relentlessly pushing to the left. You have George Soros, you have all these other people that are pushing. There are entire industries that are dedicated to destroying our culture and our way of life. And I'm just telling you that I'm so grateful and proud to be part of a family that is actually pushing back. So it's true. I have some very large donors. They're individuals. And then I also have some mid-sized donors, and I'm very grateful to those folks too. But again, I have over 500 small donors that have entrusted their, they trust me to be the one that's going to go to Austin and fight for their liberty, because they trust me to be able to do that. And it's because I have a track record of being a fighter. I have never done this before. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office in the past. But I have been involved very intensely behind the scenes politically, and I'm so very proud to be able to tell you that. And so that's the answer to the question. Thank you very much.
How will campaign donations affect my campaign? They won't. The Word of God says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And I would say that not only money, but even endorsements. When people are catering and bending their ears, and you can see this is on display down in Austin and DC right now. It's the same reason why we have the House and the Senate and the gubernatorial, and we can't get anything done, because the representatives that we have elected and sit down there are listening to other interests, and it's not us. You know, when I ran for mayor, everybody said I didn't have a chance, snowball's chance in the oven, and so that's fine. My Lord and Heavenly Savior called me to run, so I'll run. I did, and I didn't spend any money from no one had given me any money until after I'd already gotten done, and then I got donations in after the fact, and it was, I think I was probably about the middle pack on average on what was spent. But money absolutely does impact decisions that people are making. It's the reason why certain individuals may give endorsements. And it's not just the receiving of the money, it's the keeping of money from them being given to them, and so they would give support. We have got to get back to where we are looking at candidates and listening to them very carefully and watching them very carefully, what they're doing, what they have done, and then also verifying how influential they are. Because money will only go so far. You know, there's 3 falls in life, in I think in 1 John, love of money, boastful pride of life, and the lust of the flesh. There are 2 other major temptations that people have fallen to. That's why we've seen what's going on nationally. But I'm here to tell you, if we elect men and women principled and that we've seen an effective job on, then our votes will be much more effective, and the message of that candidate will win out over any amount of money that can be given. And I'll end with one last thing. In the book of Habakkuk, the whole book of Habakkuk is written, and God says, consider your ways. And the people that didn't consider their ways, God put holes in their money bag and said that money fell out. So people historically, all these people that went in fact, I saw David made the index post that Rogers is winning this campaign by campaign donations. He's got more donations. Maybe it was for interest. Stop looking at the money and listen to the message and look at what people have done, and let's use our votes wisely and get a real return on the people that we send down to Austin. I believe I am that candidate for you. My name is Christopher Paracone, and I need your vote. Thank you.
I don't have any billionaire in-laws. But a little bit about PACs that have been criticized here. What are those PACs? How many of you are in Farm Bureau? How many Farm Bureau members in here? Okay. I'm sponsored by the Farm Bureau Ag Fund. Very proud to be sponsored by the Farm Bureau Ag Fund. Those are farmers and ranchers like you that contribute to this. The Mineral Wells Tomorrow PAC, I'm proud to be sponsored by them. 51 people made up my donation from the Mineral Wells PAC. So that's just different ways of giving money to have a campaign. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money. This may wind up being the most expensive campaign in the history of rural Texas before it's over with. And that's what I'm trying to compete with. So we're going to probably have to raise a lot more money. And I have absolutely no qualms about raising money from PACs that I personally approve of. Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, Texas Medical Association, all those good people, many of you in the room contribute to those. So we have had a really good run of collecting money the old-fashioned way. Like I said, I don't have billionaire in-laws, but we've had a lot of people contribute, and we're running a good, strong campaign. So I think when you start criticizing the PACs, you need to really think about which PACs you're talking about. And it's interesting that we have criticism of PACs from somebody who has one of the largest PACs in the U.S. And as far as I know, my opponent over here, I don't know that he has any endorsements that haven't been funded by his PAC. So just something to think about. I would never accept money from a PAC that I didn't believe in what they were doing and what they represented. Thank you.
Gonna say, I do not have wealthy in-laws. I have not got millions of dollars in land. I make a decent income, but I will say this, I am pretty much self-funded except for a few people that absolutely threw checks at me and wouldn't let me. I did that partially because I absolutely am disgusted at the fact that everything in politics becomes about the dollar. And so for me, I started, and I'm not gonna lie, I started talking to PACs at the beginning, and when you kind of start getting a peek behind the Iron Curtain a little bit, you're kind of like, okay, I don't think so. And so I just stopped. I stopped filling out the stuff. I filled out some like survey type stuff, but I quit kind of really focusing on that part, and then just realized, I have my own track record. I am an attorney. I am an attorney that is hired in different areas. Monday, I was in Tom Green County advocating against CPS, representing a family. Today, I was in Collin County. I've been in Brown. I've been in Aransas County. I mean, I get TROs against the state of Texas. And you know what? I'm capable. And I'm capable of telling you guys that I am great at advocating for you. And I'll just pay for it myself and see where we get. Thanks.
Are we back to two?
What number one?
Didn't take my pad with me.
I think I am first.
Yeah, I think it is used as smoking.
Yes, this question will be answered in the order of Mr. Perricone, Dr. Rogers, Mrs. Sorrell, and Mr. Francis.
She wanted to use it to read.
I'm like Dr. Moon, but I suppose it's so proud mouth. Would you support abolishing the property tax and replacing it with a consumption tax? Would you support abolishing the property tax and replacing it with a consumption tax?
Is that? Yeah, you can do that if you want. All right, are we ready? Yes, ma'am, I got the question. Would I support abolishing property taxes and replacing it with a consumption tax? The answer to the first part of that question is absolutely yes, I would support that. The second part of that about replacing with a consumption tax, yes, I think that is a part of the solution. But it's not just the consumption tax. I think that's another revenue stream that can be looked at, but transactional tax is another way of going about doing the same thing. I don't know if, I don't know if I have enough time to try and explain this, but the answer in short is yes on both of those, but I would use a variance between the consumption tax with the new revenue stream and a transactional tax. By using a transactional tax, I don't know if I don't think I can adequately explain. The answer is yes and yes. So I will talk about something like this. You all realize that our country has lasted much longer without these taxes, right? So why is it that it's so difficult for us to change it? Like I said, Republicans have already signed on to this. They've already said, yes, we want to get rid of these taxes. Why is it not happening? So it goes back to the same question I will continue to ask and ask. When are we going to have men and women go down and do what they are saying they will do? And I'm here to tell you that of the candidates up here, I have a track record, and I like that word, Kelly. I have a track record that absolutely proves and shows that I will fight with everything that I have for what I'm saying that I'm willing to do. And I do actually have on my brochure a way to go about eliminating all of our property taxes. And it's not that's a new out-of-the-box idea. There is ways to do this, and there are smart people in Texas. There's smart people across this country. We need to empower those people with our votes, send them down to Austin, and let them go to work and start doing it. So the answer absolutely is yes, and absolutely yes on the other side. The property tax, I believe, is actually infringing on our rights because we'll never own our property as long as we have property taxes. Try not paying it, see what it is. It is a violation of our constitutional rights. So we need to have strong men stand up and women stand up for our rights because I'm sick and tired of it not happening. Please, y'all need to elect me to send me down to Austin and let me show you how effective I can be at doing those things. Thank you.
I definitely would support abolishing property taxes. I think it was Representative Drew Darby in the last session that had a bill to sunset property taxes, and I would certainly support that. The problem is, where are we going to derive the money? I think that's one of the Republican Party platform statements is to abolish property taxes and have an alternate tax, but it doesn't say exactly what that is. We're dealing with people in Austin that would not go for a consumption tax because they call it regressive. So, you know, we can go down there and ask for abolishing property taxes, and I would certainly support that. Property taxes, as have been mentioned, are not a fair tax. They don't take into account one's ability to pay. For instance, if somebody is paying property taxes, elderly person, and they suddenly can't pay their taxes because of medical problems or whatever, that's just tough luck, and that's not acceptable. So I pay a lot of property taxes. I'd like to see them abolished. I would be willing to hear other solutions on how we can make up that difference. But there's been some proposals to increase sales taxes in different areas and lower property taxes. And you know, no one wants to talk about having any taxes, but I would certainly approve of abolishing property taxes, but at the very minimum, we've got to lower property taxes. They're out of control. They're stymieing a lot of our growth. So that would be my answer. Yes, I would support abolishing property taxes.
I would support abolishing property taxes. I really wish I had my cell phone, because I really wish I could figure out which little town it was in Texas. Wayne, do you remember? Because I know we talked about it. There's a little town somewhere that actually switched out and got rid of the local taxes and switched to a sales tax, and I think actually they were relatively successful. They haven't had one, I'm trying to think, it was like 8 years, 4 years, I don't know. But I would like to see if there was some way to, sales tax, consumption tax, for the education, that was one of the thoughts I had, was using the decriminalization aspect of it. But yes, I mean, there's gotta be people out there that are really great at finances who can educate those of us, or any of us that get elected, in how exactly to do that, so.
I can tell you that I am absolutely in favor of abolishing property taxes, and I want to make something very clear. I don't trust the government. I don't trust them at all, because I can tell you what they're going to try to do. What they're going to try to do is to have a swap, right? But they're not going to get rid of property taxes altogether. They're going to say, oh, we're going to reduce property taxes, but they're going to try to swap it out with something else. And I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. They're going to have the first tax, they're going to reduce it temporarily, they're going to add the new tax, they're going to have it be relatively small. They're both going to grow, and they're going to increase spending. Again, this goes back to a spending problem. It's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. And it's across the government, and it happens federally, it happens at the state level, and it also happens at the local level. And so I just want to make it very, very clear that I am actually in favor of lowering. I want a tax cut, not a tax swap. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Whenever the politicians start talking about, oh, we're going to lower property taxes, make sure that you're understanding and enforcing and trying to force them to do the right thing. By the way, this is another one of those issues that was voted on by over 90% of the delegates to the Republican Party of Texas. Over 90% have voted that this is a critical issue. It's at the top of the list. And so, again, what happens is they get to Austin, and somehow or another, the Austin lobby ends up winning. And I'm just telling you, once again, I'm going to point out that the Austin lobby has nothing in it. They have no control over me whatsoever. I will go, I'm asking for, what I'm running for is to be your representative, your voice. And that is exactly what I will do. I will represent you, not the Austin lobby. Thank you.
All right, the order for answering the next question is Dr. Rogers, Mrs. Sorrell, Mr. Francis, and Mr. Paragon. What is your opinion on taxpayer-funded lobbying? What is your opinion on taxpayer-funded lobbying?
I was hoping you'd ask that question. Thank you. As I stated earlier, my first priority is to represent rural Texas. Whatever is best for the rural communities in this district, I'm going to be behind it. If the Republican Party platform differs from what's better for rural Texas, I'm going for rural Texas, okay? I'm a staunch Republican, and I know my opponent over here says that he supports 330 of the platforms or whatever. Okay, that's fine. I support you. I support rural Texas and your community, and if something helps you in your community, that's what I'm going for. Let me tell you about taxpayer-funded lobbyists. It has a negative name. And the reason it's there is because of the ultra-liberal policies of big cities, and it's a punitive thing they want to do. But let me tell you who it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Mineral Wells. It's going to hurt Brownwood. It's going to hurt the rural communities in this district because, as I said earlier, we hardly have any representatives west of I-35. And we don't have the resources in small communities to get people to fight for us in Austin, fight for things like schools and water and all the things that we need help and representation in Austin. So these lobbyists, if we take away the local control of our communities and say, no, you can no longer do this, it's going to cost communities much more because they're then going to have to employ people to do that are not contracted with the state. So you're going to cost small communities more money. You're not going to hurt the big cities as much as you're going to hurt small communities. So just keep that in mind. Things like unfunded mandates that come to cities, small communities, and hurt them a whole lot worse than they do large cities. So yes, I support small communities' ability to hire people to help them in Austin. I absolutely do. Thank you.
So this one's one that I'm kind of on the fence on, and that's really, I would like to kind of hear what is presented. One, because okay, so in Granbury, we represent the city of Granbury, our office does. My husband primarily handles that contract, and I know I've had to back him up on a few things. And since I'm not the city attorney generally, I've had to answer questions for staff, and one of the organizations that is on the chopping block is TML. And since we represent the city, I had a conversation with the mayor over there about TML. As a prosecutor, I also dealt with TDCAA. These are membership organizations. I mean, we're all talking about them like they're, these giant lobby groups. They have a lot of purposes other than having a voice for the communities that are members in, or counties that are members in their organization. They are invaluable resources as far as protecting people's individual rights. I would call them from the DA's office just to ask questions about activities that were going on in specific cases and just wanting to make sure that we weren't violating anyone's rights. They're quick, they're calls, they'll get us answers as fast as they can. They are attorneys on staff, they are people that are experts in the area. I have a lot of respect for those organizations on that aspect. Another concern I have, which I think is very legitimate, is that if you knock out some of those organizations that are representing our local governments, primarily, is you're gonna end up with just big money left in Austin. And then, I mean, Dr. Rogers is absolutely right. Then you're not gonna have anybody looking for or working towards protecting your local level. So I really, on that one, I really would like to see how that one plays out. I know Mr. Perricone is anti-TML. I don't know. That one's a tough one.
This is a question on which I am not on the fence. I am absolutely opposed to taxpayer-funded lobbying, and let me tell you why. it's absolutely unfair for a lobbying group to force you, and they are forcing you, they're using public money, they're using your money, and they are using the money to influence legislation that is not in your best interest. And I have no problem whatsoever with lobbying. I'm in favor of lobbying. I think individual Americans and individual Texans absolutely have the right to lobby their government. As an individual, when you are deciding to spend your own money to lobby your government, that is a wonderful thing. When you're forcing your neighbor to use their money to lobby the government for you and not give your neighbor the choice, I'm absolutely opposed to it. And it really just is it is exactly that simple. And I think it's despicable that someone would come in and force you to spend money again. They're not asking you. They're using public money, your public money, and it's against your best interest. And by the way, I'm going to point this out one more time. 94%, I believe it was over 90%, I think it's 94% of the Republican Party of Texas platform, the delegates, they voted on this issue, and they are in favor of 100% the elimination of taxpayer-funded lobbying, and I support that because I'm going to be your representative. The reality is that this is an issue that it has to do with fairness, again. And I think it's critical that we eliminate it 100%. Thank you.
100% against it. I've already stated some reasons why, but let me share with y'all what this looks like Rubber Beach Road as an elected official when TML or TAC, and there's a plethora of other acronyms out there, that this is so detrimental to our rights that the average citizen does not realize how detrimental it is. So there was an item on the agenda that I placed on there, and I called the TML attorney and said, hey, I said, this is unconstitutional based on the Texas Constitution. Here's the article. And I get a reply back in writing from TML. Yeah, you're right. Please don't talk about that with the public. We'll take care of it offhand. Or other times when, let me put it this way. These other entities that are taxpayer funded, they're not there to represent you. They have their own special interests. And we have to realize they're there to use money that they've gathered from who knows who to lobby for their interest and not yours. This is why you represent, and this is why you elect representatives to go down to Austin so that we can change the law. This is also why you have a republic, which is a rule by law, not a democracy, which is a mob rule of the majority. This is why we have laws, and y'all need to elect people that are going to do what they say they're going to do. You know, when David went and fought Goliath, how many stones did he pick up when he went down to fight Goliath? We probably have some pastors in here. Picked up 5. He goes down there, he's not because he was a bad shot with a sling. He went down there because one giant named Goliath, was mocking the Israelites, and it was mocking the God of Israel, my God. And that Philistine named Goliath sat there mocking him. Little David shows up with his sling, who had already fought lions and bears and destroyed them. And he watched all the other Israelites cower. Nobody wanted to go and fight this guy because he was so big and so strong. I think of the taxpayer-funded lobbies like this. The little David steps out, little shepherd boy, and with one rock fells the great giant. The end of the stories you read later on in Scripture, you find out that the last of Goliath's brothers did not fall until the very end of David's life, when he was not a shepherd boy, he was King David. There were 4 other brothers that Goliath had. One of them is known as the giant that had 6 fingers and 6 toes in each of his hands. I think he was actually the last one to fall. My point is this: if we can take out, and this is, I think, why this is such a huge priority and why there was overwhelming support on the Republican side, if we take out this giant that is mocking us, that giant is so loud that he's making all the Republicans weak-kneed and cower when they're down in Austin or in D.C. And it takes just one little shepherd boy that says, by golly, you will not mock my God and you will not ridicule my people. I believe that I can be that person. If y'all will send me down to Austin, let me take the stone that God has given to me to articulate arguments on our behalf, so that when that giant does fall, the other giants, whether it's abortion, which should have already been taken care of, whether it's constitutional carry, whether it's dealing with our property taxes, all those other giants will then fall. My name is Christopher Perricone, and I need your support.
This question will first be answered by Mrs. Sorrell, followed by Mr. Francis, Mr. Perricone, and Dr. Rogers. What is the definition of constitutional carry? Do you support it?
I support constitutional carry. The definition, and this is gonna be really quick, is just have it. If the Constitution says you're guaranteed it, you can keep it. There's no restrictions, limitations, licensing requirements, courses that need to be taken. That's pretty much it. And yes, I agree with constitutional carry.
I absolutely do support constitutional carry. Constitutional carry is just simply the ability to carry the weapon that you already have the right to carry. It applies to law-abiding citizens. If you are a law-abiding citizen, all it says is you have the right to carry your firearm, period. And I absolutely support that. I will say this again, this goes back, we keep hearing the same theme over and over again, and I want to point this out. I do not trust the government. I don't trust them to stop. I think that it's obvious that they want. They don't like it when the citizenry has the ability to protect themselves. The Second Amendment, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. It is the most important of our God-given rights, and the reason that it is that it is the right that protects all of our other God-given rights. It's extraordinarily important, and it's something that we ought to, as Texans, support 100%. I will point this out. Constitutional carry is, I don't know if you're aware of this, most people think that the state of Texas is at the forefront of the life issue, and they also think that they're at the forefront on the Second Amendment. And the truth is something else. The truth is that is not the case. You can go from the Red River and north all the way to Canada and have a firearm on your hip and be perfectly legal, all the way from the Red River and going north all the way to Canada. But however, if you go south, if you go into Texas right now, it is not legal, and we are not the ones at the front of this fight. And I want to make sure that Texas is at the front of that fight. It's one of the most important things that we can be doing, and so I absolutely support constitutional carry. I will say this last thing. We already have the right to keep and bear arms. That's our right. But we also have a responsibility to be able to proficiently use the firearms that we have. But that is an individual right. That is my responsibility. If you own a firearm, it's your responsibility. It is certainly not the responsibility of the government to be able to tell you, no sir, you're not good enough, you're not a good enough shot. You didn't go through this class, and so therefore we're not going to allow you to have the right to carry the firearm that you have as a God-given right. So I just want to make it very clear that I'm in favor of constitutional carry without limitation. And as written, that is exactly what it is. Thank you.
I agree with everyone. I'm in complete agreement for this on the Second Amendment. The last 4 words of the Second Amendment, you know what they are? Shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. So I like what I read on Facebook, and I said this earlier, about changing our lingo from constitutional carry, so there's no confusion. We're having to answer a question on what's the definition of constitutional carry. So let me put this out here, because I love what I read. I think it was a gentleman in Hood County. He says, let's call it the permitless carry. That makes a lot more sense. It's very common sense. Permitless carry. It's a God-given, inalienable right that we shouldn't even be having this conversation on. And if you go look at the history, look at the history of men and women bearing arms. And I'm going to do the short history. Actually, I won't do too much history because I don't have much time. But even before our Bill of Rights, we have, over in England, the English Bill of Rights had the same thing. It was the same ability for us to bear arms and to protect ourselves. You know what we're protecting ourselves from? It's not just for our own safety. Think of the spirit of this. It shall not be infringed. If we have our weapons, our guns, and we have our arms, then the government is less likely to infringe upon us. They're less likely to overreach and abuse their powers. And guess what happens if they take all of our weapons away? You know how likely they are to absolutely abuse us and put us into servitude? Because we have no ability to stand up and protect and defend ourselves. So I think that, as it says in the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, says everything. And permitless carry is a much better way of answering this. And I would ask Mr. Rogers if you would agree with permitless carry, because I was a little confused after the last forum on your position on constitutional carry. Thank y'all. My name is Christopher, and I need your vote.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. I think apparently a lot of people might have been confused about that based on the social media answer to that. Constitutional carry, as I said Tuesday night in Granbury, I support constitutional carry. I have some concerns, I said, about training. I didn't say I didn't support constitutional carry. I said I supported it, but I had concerns about training. I mentioned that Jack Wilson, who many of you know, he's a hero that saved the church, talked with him at length about it. He also has concerns. That doesn't mean that we think there should be a permit or anything. My concern is, how are people that have never handled guns in their life, they didn't grow up in this area, they grew up in New York or Dallas or whatever, we're talking about Texas, so let's say Dallas, and all of a sudden they want to go purchase a gun. Who's going to train them how to handle the gun properly and not accidentally shoot somebody? I just said I have a concern. I have a concern. It doesn't mean I don't support it, constitutional carry. I don't support permitless carry, if that's what you want to call it. That's fine. I'm fine with not having a license or a fee. I'm just concerned about training. So that was my point, and it was certainly misstated. A good example is you don't go down and buy a car or have someone who's never driven before go buy a car and then suddenly just drive that car without learning how to drive that car. And that's all I was trying to point out, that we need to be concerned about that. So that would be I don't think we need to talk about the definition because that's been covered, but I support constitutional carry. I do have concerns about how people are trained. Thank you.
No, I started right. I would like a rebuttal. All right. In the interest of time, this will be our last question. It will be answered first by Mr. Francis, then by Mr. Perricone, then by Dr. Rogers, and then Mrs. Sorrell. And then we will go into our closing statements. There are 150 members in the Texas House of Representatives. Being a successful representative is as much about building consensus and coalitions as it is about bringing good ideas and bills for consideration. Please give an example of your personal consensus and coalition building skill and experience.
So it is very true that all four of us that are up here right now are seeking one position out of 150. That's very true. But I believe that one man or one woman can make a big difference. And I believe that sometimes it takes one man to stand up and do the right thing. I have the ability to do that. I have shown that in my life, in my personality. I have done that repeatedly. Standing up when even if I'm the only one standing. And I believe that when you do that, and you have enough courage to do that, you will become a leader. You will have people that will follow you that might have been a little more timid without having someone there that's willing to be the first one to stand up. I can remember being back when I was literally in the 3rd grade. I have a very distinct memory of I was that kid in the classroom that the teacher would be explaining something and I wouldn't understand it. The reality was none of the other students in the class understood either. But I was the only one in the class that was willing to raise my hand and say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to explain that again. And so the teacher would then try to go through it again, and the reality once again was not a single one of us were getting it. And so I would tell the teacher, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to explain that again. And I've carried that same personality trait throughout my entire life. And I believe it served me well because I believe that one person can make a big difference. I will say this, there are good people in the legislature. There are good people in the Senate. And these are people that I have personal relationships with. And quite frankly, they're people that are in the House right now that are looking forward to me being in the House with them. We've already discussed this. I've gotten certain endorsements from them. Senator Bob Hall is one, for example. Good man, and someone that I feel like that again can push a culture of life in the Senate. But again, I just think that. Okay, so let me just say it this way. I'm a conservative, and the people that I have the most respect for in the House are also conservatives. And I think it's a healthy thing to go to the House and coalesce and congregate with people that are of like mind. And I do believe that you become stronger when you work together. But I also feel like that even if you are just a single man and you stand up and say, no, I'm not going to go that direction. And it goes back to what I'm telling you right now, that when I make a promise, I keep that promise. And I have certain core beliefs that are absolutely not going to change. I don't care what else is going on in the House. And so that's how I would answer that question. Thank you.
We have a saying, as I went through special ops training, it says, the strong shall stand, the weak will fall by the wayside. What I've learned in life is it is true that uncompromising men are very easy to follow because you know absolutely where they stand. You know that they're not going to waffle and move to the left or to the right. They're going to hold their course and stand strong. So the question is, of the 150 members in the Texas House, how will I be a successful representative and build a consensus in coalitions? It's by standing strong. But let me put this in perspective and quantify a little bit. Of 150 House of Representative members, each one of them represents about 167,000 individuals. It's fairly large, going through all that. But with the Republicans having the House right now, to go down there and share ideas and articulate arguments from a young Republican that says, you know what, I've read through the Republican platform, it's incredible. Have we thought differently about this? And then once you take a position, you hold it stand, you hold strong in that position. What have I done to do this when it's comes to my position as mayor, I've done it throughout my entire life, but most recently, and you can look at a voting record for this, putting on the agenda for banning abortion in the city of Mineral Wells, just to have a conversation with it and not to argue the morality, because it is absolutely wrong and settled in God's law that it is murder, but to argue it from the standpoint of the republic that we take an oath to uphold our Constitution, which is a rule of law, which is what we have made an oath as elected officials. And the elected officials that sit next to me are not even willing to have a conversation with the citizens of Mineral Wells, who overwhelmingly, it was over 80% of the emails I received, and I think it was 3 to 1 of those that spoke for it. We need to have conversations, and they need to be well articulated. It's a very simple situation on the abortion in the state of Texas. Statutory law says that it's illegal to murder someone. This is why if you murder a pregnant woman, you get 2 counts of murder. And number 2, it is settled law on our Constitution, which we are told to uphold, and it's also settled in science that that life begins at conception, not at birth. So we need to have these conversations in the open and let people have dialogue with them. If you send me down to Austin as a Republican and a strong conservative, I will articulate the arguments that are exemplified in the platform that we have. And we want to talk about building consensus. I believe that there are certain people and certain men and women that are very influential. You can see it when you talk to them. You can hear it in their voice. I believe I'm that person that when you send me down to Austin and I articulate our platform as Republicans and what we believe, that you will have those people that are weak kneed, just as the Israelites were terrified of old Goliath. They were so strengthened and encouraged after they saw that first giant fall that the next 4 fell very easily. And by the way, the other 4 giants that fell did not fall at David's hands. They fell at the other people that were there watching what David did. So I'm telling y'all and asking y'all and begging y'all and saying, listen, I need to go down to Austin to fight and deal with these issues that are going on that are plaguing us even at the local municipality levels. My name is Christopher Farrakhan, and I will absolutely fight for you, and I will show how well consensus can be built even with just one person. Thank you.
My entire career has evolved around building trust and relationships. Everything I've done, I've been able to do that, and I have no doubt that I'll be able to do that when I'm in Austin. One of the things that we have to do sometimes is we have to accept positive incremental change instead of no change. And we have people in Austin, certainly we have to stand by our principles, but sometimes we have to get something done incrementally, so we move to the ultimate goal. And I have had many experiences in everything that I've done in doing that. I'll give you an example of a coalition that I'm building here in Palo Pinto County. Every single city council member has endorsed me. The sheriff in Palo Pinto County has endorsed me. Every commissioner, 4 commissioners have endorsed me. So I built quite a coalition here in Palo Pinto County, and I can name many more counties in the district where I've had that same experience. Brown County, every commissioner has endorsed me. The mayor's endorsed me. I'm good at building coalitions and working with other people because people trust me, and I can develop relationships with people that don't necessarily agree with everything that we do. I'm working a lot with public education, and if you know the situation with teachers, there's a lot of teachers with a D. They're Democrats. About 60% Republican and 40% Democrat. But not that I'm ever going to compromise where I stand. I have to work to improve public education and talk to them and find where we have common ground for public education, and I can do that. Thank you.
I mean, I think everybody up here has pretty much said the same thing. I think everybody believes that an individual can make a difference, and I think that's absolutely true. I argue for a living, so I can manage it. I can stand on my own 2 feet. But I think, aside from that, aside from Republican flanks and things like that, one of the biggest concerns I personally have, and one of my driving factors or motivating factors in doing this, is that basically I have serious concerns with the bureaucracy that's been formed in this state. We have agencies that operate off policy that the legislature leaves basically blank for them to run rogue. I think they eat a large chunk of our budget, and that's one of the things that I'm going to advocate against. Or I'd like to. But I will say this, I trust people. I trust all of you. I don't think the government has to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it. I think we're over-regulated. I think everything's legal now. And for an attorney, you would think I'd be like, heck yeah, that's my payday, right? But I believe in the people, and I think that we need to get out of the way sometimes, so. But yes, one person can make a difference.
All right, that is the conclusion of our questions. We will now have our closing statements from our candidates. First will be Mr. Paracone, followed by Dr. Rogers, Mrs. Sorrell, and Mr. Francis.
Thank you, Ryan. Closing statements. In training in the military, special ops, I've shared this before, but they don't look for the men that are going to be strong in stature and have these amazing gifts of endurance and strength. You know, the number one thing they're looking for is these candidates go through pipeline training. Looking at their willpower. Are they going to stand and continue going? Because the cadres know that they can increase their endurance by running them longer. They can give them smoke sessions to get them stronger, and they can prepare them and make them the trained soldiers they are. But the one thing that they can't really instill, they have to see if it's already in the person, is their mindset. To stand strong, to never give up, and to continue on. As a mayor currently sitting in the position I am, I followed God's leading to run for mayor, and I'm following God's leading to run for U.S. House, Texas House District 60. I need y'all to send me down there, and I need your vote, because I believe that just as my training that was done in the military, and I was proven as I graduated top of my class, that I will stand firm on the principles that each one of us hold dear. And I have a track record that has already proven that. Whether you talk about term limits, whether you talk about right to life, whether you're talking about reform and eliminating property taxes, I can show, and I encourage each and every one of y'all to come up here and have a conversation with me so I can elaborate and explain how these things are proposed and can be done. Y'all want someone strong that can go down there and give you an exponential increase on your vote, because your one vote, when you send me down there, will turn into exponentially more, because I guarantee you I will be an influencer that will absolutely influence other Republicans. Training ground here as mayor has been interesting, as I sat on the council with 6 other liberal-minded individuals, and so we have a lot of 6-1 votes. And everyone may laugh, but if you think about it, and I know Mr. Rogers talks about the coalition building he did. It's a coalition of everybody he just listed stands against Representative Mike Lane, and essentially stands against me. That's the reality of where we're at. I'm telling you that if y'all want to look at true issues and accomplishing something, I will exude what it means to be a Republican, to give creative ideas, and to hold the line when it comes to the onslaught that's coming from the liberal and from the left. Send me down to Austin and let me show you how I can move that needle further to the right. My name is Christopher Paracone. You can find more information about me at christopherfortexas.com. That's christopherfortexas.com. And I'll reiterate again, please take the time to come and speak with each of us. I think you will be surprised at how much knowledge some of us have, and I think that I will do the best job for y'all down in the Texas House. Thank you.
see this. It's a $100 bill. It's real money.
You got money.
There's two things that money won't buy. It won't buy happiness, and it won't buy this election. My opponent, Mr. Francis over here, bragged on social media on January 15th that he raised $600,000 in about 2 weeks. And it had 450 contributors. Sounds great. You do a deeper dive, and 98% of those came from the Wilkes family, the Wilkes employees, or the Wilkes companies. Only 2%, or about $13,000, came from people like you and me. Mr. Francis also says he's a big Trump supporter, and we have Trump on a lot of his campaign ads. I have an article here that I'd be glad to share with anybody. It was a national publication from a few years ago, and in that article, talking about the PAC that sent $15 million to finance Ted Cruz and others, John Francis said that Donald Trump was not a real Republican. He was a Democrat. He was not conservative. And then he lied more than Obama. Now that's what this article says, okay? I'm here to tell you that I do support Donald Trump. We all know that Donald Trump is no Democrat. You all know that I am a conservative, true, strong Republican. I will not represent just a few radical extremists, billionaire extremists. I will represent each and every one of you. I'll represent the people of Mineral Wells, the people of Gordon, the people of Santo, the people of Brownwood, the people of Granbury. That's who I'll represent. That's why I'm running for this office. I ask for your support, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, so let me show you kind of how you go for the dirt when you're actually litigating a case. Okay, so then you just deal with your nasty facts, right? So let's just deal with everybody's nasty facts. We have this one with the Wilkes. We have this one with his criminal issues. Well, yeah. And we have this one with his residency issues. I have my own issues, and let me tell you what my own issues are. Mine are a little bit scary at first, but if you really think about it, people can understand what happened. So from the end of 2010 through the end of 2017, I lived in Cameron County, Texas, which if anybody's ever been to South Padre Island, that is that little tiny boot area of the state right on the Mexico border. And then islands out there. Okay. So while I was down there, I worked for the Cameron County District Attorney's Office, and I was a prosecutor there. I did great over the years. I worked my way up the ranks, became a supervisor, tried tons of stuff, really good stuff. I worked on some trafficking cases and things like that. But what do we know? What does everybody know about the border? It's blue, right? Everything about the border is blue. So, with that being said, though, I will say they are more conservative on their family values as far as their families being very tight-knit, and they put North Texas to shame. I mean, those people at barbecues, they last all night, and I'm like passed out. So, anyway, that being said, my boss was an elected official. When I first got hired, my elected official boss got indicted by the feds for corruption. One of the district court judges was also, he turned state's evidence against the other guys for corruption. the border has its problems, but we do need strong border security, but that's a whole separate issue, and that is absolutely why everybody should have a gun. But I did vote only in primaries for local candidates under the Democrat side. And I know that's what I got hit for at the beginning, and I was like, what are you talking about? That's what you have to do. If you live down there, if you want to have a voice, if you want to participate in your local politics, that's what you have to do. And then I was like, oh, I get it, because Texas, we keep a calculation of what you vote for. So yes, for all of those primaries that hit in there, I voted for my boss, or for the person I wanted to be my boss. Down there, it was really important that you got judicial people in there that you believed were moral and that were not going to corrupt your court system and corrupt your office. So you do what you got to do. It's the same as the Republican, Democrats, whatever do up here in the red area. That's what I've finally actually learned later. But that's how you participate. And so I'm airing my dirty laundry. Everybody else has got theirs, so yeah. I'm Kelly Sorrell, running for House District 60. I appreciate your support. Thanks.
So, I don't actually consider the fact that my family has been enormously successful in business. It's an American dream story. It's an American success story. It's not dirty laundry. It's actually very exciting, and I'm very proud of the family. I have over 500 and growing daily individuals that have supported my campaign. The reason they support my campaign is because they trust me to be the person that will fight for their liberty. The only coalition that I'm interested in being a part of is the voters of this district. And I'm so very proud to be able to tell you that I do not have any strings attached to me. I cannot be bought. I'm not going to Austin to make friends. Now, I will say this, there's a big difference between being friendly. I will be friendly, but I am not going to be their friend. I'm going to represent the people that are in this district. And this, once again, this district is composed of people that are 81% voted for Donald Trump, including myself. And I am absolutely intending on voting for the man again and doing everything in my power to make sure that he gets reelected. I think he's been the best president that we've had in my memory. And I will also not make any excuses. It's true, it was a hard-fought primary, and I think Donald Trump would agree. I'm very proud of the endorsements that I've received from Senator Ted Cruz and also from Texas Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller and many others, Lila Rose from Live Action. These are men and women that know me personally and know what I will stand for and know, more importantly, what I will not stand for. And by the way, the one that I'm the most proud of is Dr. James Dobson has endorsed me. And that's a very humbling endorsement to be able to get. When he called me, like I said, it was very humbling. The reason that he called me and the reason that he endorsed me is because he knows me. We have literally worked together, and I think the suggestion, the implication, sir, that somehow or another Senator Ted Cruz and Dr. James Dobson and some of the others that I've received endorsements for were somehow bought. I think that's an interesting argument, and I think it falls flat on its face.
Yeah.
I am a conservative, lifelong conservative Republican. I have core beliefs that are unshakable, and I'm asking you for your support. I will represent you. I want you to understand that the reason this forum is so important is because it highlights the differences between each one of the candidates. I'm proud to be able to open myself up to you, and again, I have placed my cell phone number on all my campaign literature because I want you to know that you can ask any question. I'm an open book. But I also want to make sure that you understand that I'm expecting that each one of you will hold me accountable because I'm proud of the record that I will be proud of my votes, and so I'm asking for your support. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank all of you for coming out, supporting all of these candidates and supporting our forum. And thank you to our candidates. Wonderful job. I'm sure they will be hanging around to visit.